Speed is one of those movies that deserves all the accolades thrown its way. Not only did it solidify Keanu Reeves as an action star, but it was also an Oscar-nominated film. This movie is easily in the top 10 best action movies from the 90s. But how did that come to be? Well, it all started with its writer. Similar to an Ask Reddit style post in the movie subreddit, a young Graham Yost asked his father, "What's a movie with a good premise but executed terribly?" His answer was Runaway Train. In brief, Runaway Train is a 1985 movie about two escaped inmates on board a locomotive that speeds out of control after the engineer dies. Hey look, I covered that movie recently. His dad's answer held a lot of weight as Papa Yost had wide knowledge of film. You see, he grew up around movies, and now as a man, he was the host of a very popular Canadian TV show, Saturday Night at the Movies. This meant that he was very familiar with all things movies, as well as the original Kurosawa script that Runaway Train was based on. But here's the thing, when trying to explain the premise to Graham, he incorrectly recalled certain details.
And one of the things my dad would do is redirect movies in his head and redirect ideas, and he would retell them in a way that was better than the original, but that's how he imagined it and remembered it. And so he said, I heard about the script where there's a train that can't slow down or it will blow up.
But after watching it, Yost realized the danger wasn't an explosion.
It's not that it'll blow up, they just can't get to the brakes.
The movie stuck with him, and he thought to himself that it would have been better if there actually was a bomb.
But it'd be better if it was a bus. And it'd be better if there was a bomb.
This newly formed idea stuck with him, and soon it found its way onto the page as his first draft for his blockbuster, Minimum Speed.
Everyone loves to say this one. All my friends go, yeah, never forget he called it Minimum Speed at first. Yeah, what an idiot.
That script went through multiple rewrites as a standard in every Hollywood script. The most glaring change was shifting the setting from a train to a bus. A train was too predictable. Its tracks made the solutions too straightforward, he thought. A bus, on the other hand, created much more interesting obstacles and challenges. His friends, bless their souls, suggested changing the title from Minimum Speed to simply Speed.
Yeah, what an idiot.
And swapping the original 20-mile-per-hour threshold for a thrilling 50 miles per hour.
Because I had this strange thing in my head that I wanted it to be just faster than a human could run.
Originally, the entirety of the story was self-contained on the bus. However, later rewrites added the opening elevator scene and the subway sequence.
What was the original ending?
The original ending was just them getting off the bus. And it was a shorter script.
All parties involved realized that the characters needed to be fleshed out, and the movie needed to have a face-to-face confrontation between the hero and the villain. Many more changes continued as the cast came together. Jack was supposed to be a painkiller-addicted cop in a knee brace and a cane. That was changed until Keanu Reeves got the role and showed up with a buzz cut. Annie was originally envisioned to be an African-American paramedic, and then changed to a comedic driving instructor.
One of the first things that Paramount said was, does she have to be African-American? I said, I guess not. I don't know. I'm a neophyte. I'm just going to cave into anything.
Halle Berry passed on the role, and Sandra Bullock was chosen over Ellen DeGeneres.
That kind of launched your career, right?
It most definitely did.
It was meant for me, and you took the role.
That I took your role, and I don't feel bad about it at all.
It's true.
Dennis Hopper's role became much more prominent once they realized how good he was in the role. Would it surprise you to learn that Harry was originally the bad guy? Apparently the plan was Keanu shooting the hostage, and then his life spirals out of control. He blames Jack for ruining his life and seeks revenge against him.
Shoot the hostage. What?
So yes, the idea was that he's not the bad guy in the elevator sequence, but that he conjures up, that guy just dies. You know, what we call the Harry version lasted until the summer before we started shooting. People were on board with it. Two other producers came in, Walter Parks and Laurie McDonald. And they said, you know, the Harry version may be doable, but I don't think you've got the time. I don't think you've got the real estate. I think you just need a bad guy. So that was the big switch.
That was swapped out for Dennis Hopper being the main bad guy. And instead of having Dennis Hopper in the beginning, they had just had him to be in the rest of the film. After months of tweaking the script deep into production, the film was ultimately released, and it was a smashing hit.
A new thriller named Speed wasn't supposed to be released until later this summer, but it was rushed into theaters last week because the studio wanted to take advantage of all the positive word of mouth it was getting in its early test screenings. Suddenly, Speed is #1 at the box office, and people are calling Keanu Reeves a major new action star.
The film was released on June 10th, 1994. It debuted #1 in the box office with $14.5 million. Like mentioned earlier, Speed's word of mouth blew it up. In its final theatrical run, it brought in $350 million, 121 of it being domestic and $229 million from international markets. That is an insane run. It came in first with The Flintstones in the second spot, and City Slickers 2, The Legend of Curly's Gold, in third. The movie comes in at 116 minutes and is rated R for violence and language. So a pretty standard action flick if you ask me. As far as ratings go, I'm pretty surprised. IMDb's at 7.3 out of 10, Metacritic at 78, and the Letterboxd at 3.7 out of 5. I kind of expected it to be in the 8s, you know? The audience rating on Rotten Tomatoes is on par with the rest of them at 77%, while the critics absolutely loved it. The critics score is at 95%. Absolutely perfect. In 2020, Jeremy Jahns retroactively reviewed the film, putting it into words how we all feel about Speed, and ultimately giving it his highest rating.
Speed absolutely is awesome-tacular.
Unsurprisingly, Siskel and Ebert thoroughly enjoyed Speed, giving it 2 thumbs up.
All of the sequences work. Reeves is absolutely compelling as Speed delivers a whole lot more action in more different locations than you might expect. Speed works.
Boy, it sure does. This movie was fun. 2 very enthusiastic thumbs up for the non-stop action and special effects in Speed. An ingenious thriller with a strong performance by Keanu Reeves and an evil intellectual villain by Dennis Hopper.
The film got recognition at the 67th Academy Awards in 1995. It received 3 nominations for Best Film Editing, Best Sound, and Best Sound Effects. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm excited to announce that Speed is a 2-time Oscar-winning film. It won in the sound and sound effects categories. In its third category, film editing, it lost to Forrest Gump. Regardless, this movie deserves all the accolades. This is one of those movies that has you on the edge of your seat and does not let go. Scriptwriter Graham Yost was hoping to create a franchise around it and had ideas for Speed on a boat and Speed on a plane.
Full Speed was going to be transporting munitions left over from the Vietnam War on a boat in the Pacific Ocean, and they hit a storm. But they find out it's got phosphorus in it, and if water hits it, it's going to blow up. And then High Speed was another bad guy, and you can't drop below 10,000 feet. And you're running out of fuel, and you're headed into the Andes. Now what do you do?
There was also a SWAT show that he tried making that had the officers dealing with dilemmas in the fashion of Harry's pop quiz scenarios.
It was just going to be a SWAT show, and the idea was we were just going to use the title, but it was going to be a different kind of SWAT dilemma every week. But it was that kind of puzzle solve thing. How do you, if someone does this, what do you do? Kind of show.
I find you. Pop quiz, hot shot. There's a bomb on a bus. What do?
Unfortunately for the actual sequel, Graham felt that Jan de Bont rose in stardom and gained access to a wider range of writers and decided to work on the sequel without him. And based on the reviews, I'm sure he's okay with it. Speed 2 Cruise Control basically killed any sequels. But to be fair, the movie didn't need a sequel. It was a standalone event that happened to Jack and Danny, and any more would feel far-fetched. Keanu Reeves was born on September 2nd, 1964 in Beirut, Lebanon. Keanu plays the role of protagonist Jack Travin, an LAPD SWAT officer that has to stop a bus from exploding if it dips below 50 miles per hour. In 1993, he was in Even Cowgirls Get the Blues and Little Buddha. After Speed, he starred in Johnny Mnemonic in 95 and A Walk in the Clouds in 96. Sandra Bullock was born on July 26, 1964 in Virginia. Bullock plays the role of Annie, a passenger that takes over driving duties after the original bus driver gets incapacitated. Prior to Speed, she was in Demolition Man and Wrestling Ernest Hemingway, both released in 1993. After Speed, she was in Me and the Mob in 94 and While You Were Sleeping in 95. Dennis Hopper was born in Kansas on May 17, 1936 and passed away on May 29, 2010. Howard takes on the role of antagonist Howard Payne, an ex-bomb squad cop that turns into terrorism and rigs the bus with a bomb. Prior to Speed, he was in True Romance in 1993. In 1994, he released 3 films, Chasers, Speed, and Witch Hunt. The following year, he was in Search and Destroy. Director Jan de Bont was born on October 22, 1943 in the Netherlands. Speed was Jan's directorial debut in Hollywood. However, he was already working on big projects. One of the biggest roles familiar to most was as cinematographer in Die Hard, which basically paved the way for him to create Die Hard on the Bus. In 1994, he directed the two-time Oscar-winning film Speed. He followed it up with his two-time Oscar-nominated film Twister in 1996. Not bad. In 1997, he directed the sequel to Speed titled Speed 2 Cruise Control, which completely bombed. Finally, he directed The Haunting in 1999 and the sequel to Lara Croft, The Cradle of Life in 2003. That was his final film and his complete directorial lineup. If you've seen any of the movies I mentioned here, comment below. Also, check out my profile for any other movies that might be interested.
Don't worry, I have a plan. I saw this in a movie about a bus that had to speed around the city, keeping its speed over 50. And if its speed dropped, it would explode. I think it was called The Bus That Couldn't Slow Down.